special good morning. Those of you listening to Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9 on the FM dial. Good morning. Those of you viewing GBN TV, Channel 7, Channel 11, Channels 20, good morning to you also. How are you doing this morning? Hope all is well and feeling A-okay, I'm assuming. Good morning to you once again. Those of you via our social media platforms, whether it's the Facebook page, YouTube channel, good morning to you. Those of you via GBN's webpage, gbn.gd, good morning to you and welcome. It's Opposition Tuesday here on To The Point this morning. I'm your host, GT. I'm going to be around with you for the next hour or so here on the program this morning. And representing the opposition this morning, we have MP Emmalin Pierre with us this morning. Let's go over to her and say good morning. Good morning to you, Ms. Pierre. How are you this morning? Hope all is well. Nice to have you back on the program this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you and good morning to all of your listeners. It's definitely a pleasure to be back as well.
And how's everything? How's everything with you this morning? Just to get that little chit-chat in, if I could say that. How was everything this morning?
Yeah, so if you know me well, you know I'm a very optimistic person, so it's always well. God is good, it's always well. Life throws different things at you, different challenges, but of course, I live by the scripture that says all things work together for good. So there's never a bad anything for me.
Happy to know. Certainly happy to know that. Life. I mean, it's a great philosophy to go by, and it keeps your focus. As I've talked to you, it keeps your focus in the right direction, if you could put it in that way. Once again, thanks for being with us this morning here in the program. You being former Minister of Sports, I want to kind of center our conversation this morning in sports. We just wrapped up into call. We could say we're into the sports season right about now in terms of a lot of various schools that are having their sporting events and so forth. We have Carifta coming up and so forth. Now, the 2024 season is in full swing. We can say that. We have just wrapped up into call. Tell us, what are your thoughts on the 2020 or the results, I should say, of Intercall 2024? What are your thoughts on that?
And it's one of the places I wish I didn't have to make a comment like this. For a question like that, I'm supposed to get really excited. But as you ask the question, my mind goes back to Vanessa Harford, a young avid supporter of the St. Andrew's Anglican Secondary School, and I remember looking at the photographs of the events, and it's very unfortunate that as someone who went there, Intercall 2024, and obviously she went there to give her all in terms of support, died just subsequent to the conclusion of the games. And so I actually want to start there by extending condolences to her family, her immediate family, all of her close friends, the SAS community, the co-workers on her job, and all the people who are really hurting over this loss. I don't think we can ever talk about Intercall 2024 and not remember this unfortunate incident. So again, my heart goes out to all of those who are touched and affected by this great loss. But GT, the Intercall 2024, quite obviously, you saw the colors and the glamour that goes with Intercall. And of course, I want to use the opportunity also to congratulate the St. Andrew Anglican Secondary School, St. David's Catholic Secondary School for winning the boys and girls respectively in the competition. But also, Match Pass Intercall has become a really big thing. And I must say, commendations, congratulations, Happy Hill Secondary School, and was it St. David's Catholic, placing first in the boys and girls category. But as I say this, I really want to single out St. David's Catholic. If you noticed, first in the girls, third in the boys, and first in the Match Pass. Quite obviously, they would have showed some all-round in terms of performance there. So I really want to congratulate all of the athletes, of course, the coaches who have worked so hard, the teachers, all of the sponsors. What was very obvious is that the sponsors came out and would have, done a bit extra in many cases. And so all of those, the officials, all of those who made in the past and made in the recent past intercall, the success it was, I really want to extend commendations. I had the opportunity on the final day to witness part of the activities of the day, and I was really, really impressed. There was a particular student athlete who, I mean, caught my attention without any any reservation. I was really, really thrilled. This student from Boca Secondary School, I think her name is Annalisa Brong, I think it is, from Boca Secondary School. I was really impressed with her. But as I said, you know, Intercall 2024, I must specially single out the Principal Association that organized the games. Quite obviously, you could have seen that the principals would have put their all into making this a success. And I was rather impressed with what I saw.
All right. Now, though, from the organizational structure, you did say you were impressed and so forth about the Intercall Games 2024. Would you say it was a success, in your opinion?
Oh, definitely. I mean, apart from, as I said, the very unfortunate situation, the passing of Vanessa, I think generally speaking, I don't think there were any other major incidences that we could refer to. Of course, there has always been a concern about students not turning out in the way that they should on all the days, and that has been a historic issue. And of course, I believe the principals over the years have been looking at ways in which that can be addressed. And I'm quite sure that they have been looking at different strategies. And I think it's a matter of continuing to do that. In terms of, as I said, I can't think of anything major that I can say, you know, could have made the 3 days not successful. So definitely it was a success. Of course, with everything, there's always room for improvement. Quite obviously, there's always the call for the involvement of TAMCC in the games. Over the years, you've heard that, and you hear it again this year. There are mixed feelings towards that and different opinions, but I do strongly believe that we still have to continue to find a way to involve TAMCC at this level. Many of our athletes, after leaving secondary school, we must admit that there isn't sufficient to engage them and to continue to nurture the talent that they have. And so I do honestly believe that we need to continue to look at a solution to this. How do we encourage more sporting competition among the clubs? How do we support the clubs even more to get them at the level of readiness for competition? So there is the view that there should be a space in Intercall to accommodate them. Whether or not it's the best avenue to showcase their sporting talent is another question. But something else that stood out to me that I was also very impressed with was the participation of the students from the School for Special Education. And I looked at them, and if it was not announced that they were students from the School for Special Education making a guest appearance, I would say, if you were not aware, you would not have been able to conclude that they were. And so I think if we talk in inclusiveness and we promoting every learner can succeed, we not just speaking success academically, we speaking about all aspects of life. And I'm sure these young boys and girls would have left there feeling elated, feeling, you know, good about themselves. And of course, that's what we want to continue to do. Encourage, motivate them, making them feel that they are indeed special as they are, and that there is a space for them in everything that we do. They can be accommodated and they can be embraced, you know, and not accommodated to feel as if they are different and they don't have a place, but to feel fully accepted and fully a part of. And I really felt I was extremely pleased about that.
Being former Minister of Sports and the view of the sports season 2024 and so forth as we move forward, what's your view on sports and young people in Grenada? Do we see a constant rise in especially the young individuals who are participating? Do you foresee a bright future for Grenada as a whole in sports, as in terms of young people representing Grenada?
So I strongly believe that sports is just like music and other areas, important vehicles for engaging young people positively, for building young people and their character, for providing that avenue for positive use of the energies. So I totally, absolutely. But that does not, what I just said, does not even include the tremendous opportunities that sports provide. And sometimes I think we overlook that, the opportunities, the many opportunities. So I know of many students over the years who have had an opportunity to free university education because of their success in the sporting field. And so sports remain and will always be an excellent opportunity, not just to showcase the abilities of our young people, the diversity of young people, but also an excellent opportunity for success. And I'm talking about true success. So when we think back of athletes like Kirani, and so many other athletes, Andre Fletcher, and so many others who would have made their mark locally, Anderson Peters, and maybe I should not even go into calling names because it would be impossible to name them all. But not just in those fields, we also have basketball, right? So there are so many young athletes who would have succeeded and would have made a name for themselves because of those early years of involvement in sporting activities. One of the things that we've always had to deal with in education, and not just in my period as Minister for Education, the perception that many parents believe that the involvement of their children in sporting activities, extracurricular activities, take away something. Now, if you do the research, you would figure out that it's quite the opposite, right? The discipline, the focus, the passion for things that are positive. You find that many of these young people, if you look at their academic performance, you would realize that they do very well in sports, but they also do very well academically. And so I am one who feels very strongly about extracurricular activities and not just sporting activities, but so many other things that can positively engage our young people and build them in such a way that they can be citizens who can make very valid contribution to society, present and in the future.
As we see various occurrences lately on island, the crime situation and so forth, where lots of young people are getting themselves involved in crime and so forth. Your thoughts in terms of sports, again, because we're keeping our focus a wee bit on sports this morning. Your thoughts, of course, if young people get to challenge their energy in this direction, do you foresee a more peaceful and calmer way in terms of how the society runs, especially with crime around young people today?
No, and I feel strongly about that as well. If we do a study right now, and you look at all the young people who have been involved, conflict with the law, who have been involved in activities that are not socially and acceptable in terms of our standard of society, you would draw a conclusion, I'm quite sure, that many of those young people were not positively engaged, right? And I do believe there is a direct correlation between young people's positive involvement and their behavior, right? So the young person who goes to school, from school goes on the track, from the track goes home and study, you would find that this person doesn't have a lot of time to get involved in negative activities, right? the young person who is very involved in the choir at church, from school goes to choir practice, or from school goes to 4-H meeting, or something that keeps them positively engaged, you find that obviously their involvement in negative activities would be less. And this could probably amplify this saying that we've always repeated over the years: idle hands become the devil's workshop. And so it means that what we want to do is to make those opportunities more attractive, right? And we have to be mindful that with cultural penetration, young people's exposure to so many other things, the technical revolution that we experience in, quite obviously, there will be a competition. So when a young person has to choose between being part of the Scout movement and having the free time to be playing the games on the internet, of course, some people may choose that they prefer the internet. So it means that we have to do an analysis of what is happening within the Scout movement, and I'm just using Scouting as an example, to see how can we make it more attractive, right? Are these boys still motivated to go on camps, or they find camps to be boring now? Is there something else we can do? Is there another way that we can attract them? So I think it calls on all stakeholders, all of those involved in youth development, to really study this generation. Sometimes we take for granted what worked 30 years ago will automatically work today, and we may find that it's not the same. And so I believe sports, yes, there has been, in my opinion, a decline of involvement and interest in certain aspects of sports. If you speak to teachers in school, you would find out, physical education activities. I mean, even during my period as a teacher, more and more you hear reasons why this child cannot run cross country, or this child, the interest. We have to understand and accept that we are dealing with different children and a different generation, different times. And so we have to tailor what we do, what we offer. It's a competition. We can't run away from that. And we have to be able to attract them into those different areas that are very positive.
All right, great there. Of course, MP, up here we drew for a break. Let's take a be coming right back. Folks, stay with us. It's To The Point here on Classic Radio GBN TV. We'll be right back after the break.
Planning and Development Authority of Grenada, PDA, is enforcing regulations to curb illegal, disorderly, and unauthorized development in several locations throughout the state of Grenada. The authority is concerned that structures mainly associated with vending are negatively impacting the environment, has undesirable public health and sanitation consequences, present obstructions to vehicle and pedestrian traffic, can become projectiles during adverse weather conditions, and generally affect the aesthetics of the nation. The PDA will work along with stakeholder ministries and institutions to effect the demolition, removal, and disposal of structures which fall in the category of illegal and disorderly development, commencing January 2024. In this regard, persons who vend in or occupy such illegal structures are advised to secure their personal belongings and have the structures removed ahead of the planned PDA demolition operations. These actions of the PDA have become necessary to safeguard and protect public health and the environment, ensure the safety and well-being of all citizens and visitors, discourage any future disorderly construction, and encourage compliance to regulations pertaining to physical development in the state of Grenada. This is a message from the Planning and Development Authority of Grenada.
It's To The Point here, Classic Radio, GBN TV. Welcome all of those of you, especially via our social media platforms. Welcome back. Let's me also welcome back MP Emmalin Pierre with us this morning, representing the opposition here on To The Point this morning. MP Pierre, good morning and welcome back. Another question that I have for you, and there's always a saying that sometimes you have to look back in order to know your way forward, if you understand where you're coming from. Now, you being the former Minister of Sports, let's looking back at the work done over the years. What was some of the priority areas that you may have given back then in comparison to what we see now?
And just before going into that question, I just, during the break, thought about it. I thought Intercall 2024 was also a good place to begin that build up towards Carifta. As you know, we'll be hosting Carifta this year. Sports has no color, right? And so we are all excited, looking forward. Grenada would have successfully hosted Carifta before. I believe 2000 and 2016 were the years that we hosted successfully the games, and this year again we have the opportunity, and I believe we can build upon what we saw in Intercall 2024. In terms of looking back and the contribution of our administration back then in terms of sports, I always, and I find it difficult when I speak about sports, to not speak about very solid foundation that has been built by former sports minister Adrian Spaceman Mitchell, and we spoke about this sometime before on this program. And his legacy, I believe, would always live on when we speak about sports, the transformation of this area of development, and of course the potential. Because while we speak about what has been achieved, let us always be mindful that there's always room to build upon what was achieved in the past, take it to the next level. And this is what I would love to see happening at this time. So I believe one of the critical areas that we can look back and feel a sense of pride, feel that when we go to the stadium to do Intercall in 2024, that we can see the students, we can see the athletes benefiting from the investment in the National Athletic Stadium. We also have the cricket stadium that has been a major investment in sports. And as I said, everything that we have done in the past, it is an excellent opportunity to build upon that as we move forward. The lighting of playing fields around the island, that again has been a major investment by the new National Party's administration. Major facilities, major sporting facilities, playing fields throughout the island, that has been again another major area of focus. The construction of basketball courts, for example, right? The investment in schools programs, the investment and support for the various associations. And that is actually one of the concerns I have, where we, as it relates to supporting the association, because government has a critical role to play as an enabler, as a supporter, creating not just the enabling conditions as it relates to sports and the development of sports, but also to work closely with the stakeholders, right? And so during the period of my service as Minister for Sports and other ministers of sports, as way back as I said, Spaceman Mitchell, the history of support for associations, all of the associations, I believe that is another area that has helped in building that solid foundation I believe that we have been able to create in the past. But I believe another area that is critical and still very critical, the investment in athletes academically, because we keep saying to our athletes, yes, it is a great thing to excel on the tracks, on the field, but of course, education is always going to be a priority. Wherever you go, it is going to be a priority. So our administration would have invested millions of dollars in supporting students, in supporting athletes as it relates to their education and their various pursuits in terms of education. The hosting of international games, and I really want to speak to that later on as well. That for us was a major factor, a major play. How do we ensure that we don't just develop what we have for local use, but that we strengthen the ability to attract external games? And so this is something not just for the exposure of our local athletes and our young people, but how do we tie that into national development? So when we speak about sports tourism, when we speak about the economy and revenue generation, what are the opportunities within sports? So building that foundation, as I said, creating the enabling conditions to facilitate that. Where we are now, we should really be flying, and building upon many of those pillars that have been constructed in the past, I would say. The other thing I would also mention, in my opinion, that was another critical area of focus of our administration, was that of talent identification and the decentralization of the sporting programs. And that is something, again, as I said, all of these areas do have potential for growth, expansion. How do we ensure that we promote that? How do we ensure that we invest in that to make sure that we are continuing the legacy of the past? We are continuing to build upon the opportunities that have been created. And so over the years, so many persons have made so many sacrifices in the area of sports. Some have passed on, some are still, laboring in the vineyard. And I want to be very careful not to begin to call names at this time. But over the years, there have been so many people who have contributed to the development of the sporting landscape in Grenada and has made such a valid contribution. And I'm speaking here not just in the case of athletes, but coaches and other people who have made so many sacrifices, officials, and so on. And of course, I believe we're in an excellent position to build upon what we have created, to build upon what we have been able to achieve in the past. Maybe I should mention here that government is a continuum. And of course, what has been achieved by previous administrations, I believe this current government, owe it to all of those who have an interest in sports, owe it to the nation to move speedily ahead, to build and advance upon the many achievements in the area of sports.
Minister Pierre, some would say, this administration has only been their second year, having now at least two ministers taking over the portfolio of Ministry of Sports and so forth. In the years of you being the Minister of Sport back when being part of the former administration, you did mention a whole lot of areas that of course you would have liked to see. Maybe you should have more energy should have been put into it than we've seen now. We hear lately of the sports policy consultation and so forth that will be taking place. What's your take on that?
So before I respond to that, let me just comment on the 2 years. And I think it's time that we stop this reference to it's just been 2 years. If you give me another hour, I can tell you probably a million things that could be done in 2 years, right? I believe the administration, and we speak in sports today, has received a platter of achievements, successes in the area of sports, and I believe it ought to be much more aggressive in moving forward the sports agenda. So you don't need 2 years to form a stronger relationship with sporting associations. You don't need 2 years to bid for T20 World Cup games. You don't need 2 years to invest in certain aspects of sports and the development of sports. So I am becoming a little bit wary of this reference to only 2 years. And it is not good for the government either. because there's a measure of complacency that one may encourage when we continue to reference it is only 2 years, it is only one term. So relax, don't do too much, take your time. We got to be very careful about this, because I am very, very concerned that I'm not seeing the kind of movement that I'm expecting to see in the area of sports. And I do hope that we are going to have an urgent turnaround in that area. But let me just make mention, and you referenced during my period of service in that area, and let's talk about time. I recall, and very, very fondly so, the decision of the past administration, and that is the New National Party administration, to bid for the second test, West Indies versus England, which was scheduled to be in April of 2015. Many people felt this was an impossibility. Many people felt that there's no way we could be ready. We didn't have the time. And I want to say this, the partnership between the government, the Grenada Cricket Association, the stakeholders, right? The Cabinet of Grenada took a decision. We were going to do whatever is necessary to ensure that Grenada successfully hosted the games. As Minister for Sports at the time, the mandate was given to make it happen. And I must say at this point, with the support of all of the stakeholders, we came together. As people would say, you bang your belly and you say, we are going, it's going to happen. We're going to make it happen. I remember also coming out of this decision was the same hosting of Intercall 2015. So this was supposed to be in March of 2015. And of course, the preparation that was required, the standard that was required, it was impossible to host the Intercall at the National Stadium. I'm not sure if your mind can go back to that. So we were faced, between a rock and a hard place. You were making the decision, do we put off Intercall 2015 or do we find a way to make both Intercall and cricket happen? Well, I don't think water would have been able to wash the government if we decided not to host Intercall. And so as Minister for Sports, again, the cabinet mandated that I find a way to make it happen. Hosting of Intercall, hosting of the West Indies versus England test matches. And so, again, partnership. So we involved the Principal Association. They bought into the idea of moving Intercall to Progress Park. Again, so many people felt that this was impossible. We did not have the time. So I'm talking about time here when we speak about 2 years, right? So it was felt we didn't have the time to accomplish this. It was going to be impossible. And so, again, partnership, cooperation, passion, and people who were committed to make sure that by any means necessary, this was going to happen. And so we would have constructed several additional facilities at Progress Park. Up to the day before the games, publicly people were saying it is impossible, this would not happen. The tongue and country conversation erupted, I would say. And the end result, Intercall was successfully hosted at Progress Park. I recall also and it was a very interesting period for me as Minister for Sports at the time, because you had the Intercall and the test match in 2015. And then immediately after that, 2016, we got an opportunity to bid for CONCACAF Under-17 tournament for the first time in Grenada, the female tournament. And again, it was said, we don't have the time. This is not possible. The state of readiness, there's no way we can do this. As a matter of fact, I recall a meeting at which Chenny Joseph was present at my office, and a visiting delegation from CONCACAF visited Grenada. After touring the facility, we had a meeting at about 6 o'clock the evening. And they said, we are very saddened to say to you this evening that Grenada will not be able to host the tournament. We've toured all your facilities and we do not believe it is possible and my reference on this is Jenny Joseph, we don't believe it is possible for Grenada to be at a state of readiness for a tournament of this standard. I remember pleading with this delegation, and I said to them, give us 3 weeks. Give us 3 weeks, return, and we are going to prove to you that we could host the tournament. Long story short, Grenada hosted the tournament for the first time, and it was a major success. I'm saying all of this to say, whatever you find, whatever the situation, you take that, you collaborate, you pull resources together, you pull stakeholders together, and you work towards making a dream a reality, making a goal a reality. And so I get very uncomfortable when, and I'm very sorry, when people start to talk about it's only 2 years. I mean, there's so much you could achieve in 2 years, and we ought not to be making excuses for this government as it relates to what could have been achieved within 2 years. So St. Vincent is going to host 5 ICC Men T20 World Cup matches. St. Lucia will also be hosting, and I'm yet to find a reasonable excuse that satisfies me. Not that I need to be satisfied, but that I can accept in a comfortable way why we are not hosting those games this year.
Minister Pierre, well, some would say that, the past administration, the condition of our national stadium and so forth, that was left of the past administration to have that taken care of. The present administration, now Ministry of Sports and so forth, will have those facilities to be repaired and get up to standard, if we could say that. Is it fair to say that could be a reason or reasons why we are unable to get the games that are maybe needed, because the past administration maybe have lapsed in terms of the repairs that were needed at the time?
And my response to this is that we could have done this in 2 years, right? So to blame the former administration, I have an approach, and maybe I'm just very different in that regard. So I am very reluctant to blame anybody for something that I could do or could have done, right? It would not be something that I would practice, generally speaking. So the question is, could we have repaired the facility between June 2022 and this point at which we speak, right? That's the first question. The second question is, how do we move forward as it relates to this? Did we even submit a bid is another question. Because you know what I know? Every country that was that had submitted a bid would have been seriously considered, and they may have all received matches. So if you advance the point of readiness, then I would now ask you, who deemed the facility not ready? Did you even express an interest in hosting the game? And did somebody come? Because after you submit your bid, then someone comes to evaluate to determine whether you are ready or not. So convince me that we wanted the game so badly that we were prepared to submit a bid and to take the necessary actions within short time to get the facility ready. So I don't get into blame games. It's not, something I practice very well. And I believe you're in the driver's seat, you just drive, right? If you keep looking back to see what was done, wasn't done, you're going to be wasting time. You're going to have an accident. You're going to bounce into something, right? The point is, you got there, you know that there are potential games ahead, so you put structures in place and then celebrate that you were able to do it in spite of whatever that you met that you probably preferred not to have met. Right. And that's the way I suggest we look at it.
All right. Minister Pierre, we of course back with questions I would like to ask. One of my questions was most of some of the challenges you may have gone through, but you did reference a couple of the challenges, so I guess it may not be necessary to ask you a question of that nature when we come back. When we come back, we do a few more questions, and we will invite or call some of our listeners and viewers if they do have a question or two they would like to ask. Let's take that break, folks. We'll be right back.
I want you to control your anger. There's a way to feel better. That's one thing to remember. No matter where you are, you can be a star. Stop and take a deep breath and relax yourself. Take another deep breath and relax it, and relax it. Eliminate violence.
Coming up, the world's finest cocoa comes from the Caribbean, and the awards are piling up. Caribbean Airlines welcomes you home. Learn more about Republic Bank's Power to Make a Difference program, and regional ties deepen as Barbados networks in Trinidad and Tobago. All this and more on Caribbean Passport TV, right here on this station.
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers, to The Point for today, Tuesday. It's Opposition Tuesday here on To The Point this morning. And representing the opposition this morning, the New National Party, we have MP Emmalin Pierre with us this morning. MP Emmalin Pierre, good morning and welcome back. As we move through this morning, a question I would like to ask, what would you like to see the current administration, their focus, I would say, as it relates to sport? What would you like to see they put their focus on a whole lot more as it relates to sports?
As I would have hinted earlier, I believe there has been a solid foundation built and a lot of achievements in the area of sports. And credit to the former administration and all of the stakeholders, the associations, all of the people who are so passionate about sports in Grenada. And I believe, as I said also, the current administration, I would recommend very strongly a pulling together of all of these stakeholders, the associations, all of those involved, and are so passionate. There are so many people in Grenada who are passionate about sports. I would strongly recommend re-engaging or engaging in a greater way with many of these people. I've heard certain comments. I won't repeat them here, but whether it be from persons in associations or different areas, indicating that they would love to see a greater involvement of the government being more supportive and all of that. And as I said, this is critical for success especially in crisis moments, right? When you can pull together to achieve certain levels of success. So that, I believe, is critical. If you attempt to do this alone, it would become very lonely. It would become very difficult. So I believe the support of stakeholders working together with the government working with them is very critical. I would say the continuation of major projects. So whether it be the lighting of playing fields, whether it be continued development of facilities. So we know that when we left government, there were a number of projects that were at certain stages, right? So bidding, whether, paperwork, what have you, procurement, what have you. And so we believe that these projects should have been rolling out at a faster rate, right? So if you notice, for example, the lighting of La Sagesse, there was a schedule for the continuation of that initiative. So whether it was the stadium, the Progress Park, projects that were delayed, such as the what you call it, the swimming pool, the swimming association, governments working with the swimming association. So government had made met certain part of their commitment. So, for example, the provision of the lands, right, for the pool, and commitment to FINA for the maintenance. I believe it is 15 years or so. That was a requirement for the application of that. So all of those things, how do we pull stakeholders together and work with them, support them? Is there an issue? Is there a way we can further support? I am not going to say that our administration was perfect when it comes to our involvement in that way, but of course, we would have done something that I believe could be expanded, could be developed moving forward. Support for athletes. We've always heard this cry. During our period in office, we would have put certain systems in place. We would have done certain things. Of course, we would have loved to do more, but I'm saying let's continue to do more now, right? How do we incentivize our athletes to do even better? We don't want to make them perform well because of those, but we want them to be recognized and rewarded well based on their performance. And in the past, we've done a lot that I would admit maybe we did not structure it sufficiently. So when you look back, person A might have gotten 1, person B might have gotten 5, and when you compare, and so what we started to do was to put a structure on paper that would guide how do we go forward. I'm not sure what is the current situation, but I'm thinking that this can be, I mean, it can be reviewed, it can be expanded, it can be developed. Let us do what is necessary, right? The upgrade of our major fields and even our minor fields, there are a lot of complaints at the local level, the community level. A number of persons were dismissed from their roles in terms of maintaining of playing fields, and I probably would not have had a major issue with this if we saw an improvement. The reality is, in many of these cases, the fields went back to where they were before there was someone contracted to maintain them. I mean, I don't want to specify here, but there are some fields, if you walk through now, you can get lost, right? And this is no exaggeration here. I'm saying that we need to do better in that regard. If we need to recall these people who were fired, and I know some of them who are very good at what they did, very, very good. And they had a passion for what they did. So if we need to recall them, let's do that, right? If we need to train the new people who were contracted, let us do that. But let us not reverse. Let us move forward. And that is my plea this morning. Wherever we got to, let us move forward. Let us build upon that. I'm sure there are many people who are not part of the process now, who don't mind supporting, who don't mind contributing, who don't mind advising, right? And there are many such people that I can think of who I'm sure for the cause of sports. Remember, as I said when I started, sports does not know color, right? Let us not add a color to it. Let us ensure that we embrace everyone for the contribution that they can make to the development of sports in Grenada.
Thank you so much. And you know, Minister Pierre, I can't let you run off because we did talk a whole lot about sport this morning. If we don't get a little politics into the conversation this morning, you know, there's word on the ground that you are running for political leader. Is this true?
And I laugh because your memory is probably not as good as mine. But I remember someone would have asked a similar question. It must have been on this program. But let me just say this, and to make it as clear as I can. I'm not running for anything because there's nothing to run for right now. There is no vacancy in the new National Party. The new National Party has a sound executive with a political leader at this time, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, in case anyone would have forgotten. There is an executive, there is a deputy political leader, and all of the positions of leadership of the new National Party is currently filled. The new National Party, as is customary, when it is hosting a convention where there would be election for officers, at that point, individuals will indeed offer themselves as they feel to. And if you are wondering whether I'm one of the persons who will offer myself when a vacancy arises, the answer to that is yes. And I think I did say that before. At this time, I'm not running for anything. I'm not announcing anything because there is no vacant position within the party. When a vacancy arises, I would definitely consider offering myself for that position.
All right, thank you so much for your response. Let's take a call. Don't forget, folks, the lines are open now, 435-2041, 435-2041. We're taking your call. Let's take this call via WhatsApp. Caller via WhatsApp, good morning. Go ahead with your question or contribution this morning.
Morning.
Good morning to you.
Morning.
Yes, caller, go right ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm just calling with the TAMCC inclusion into secondary school sports. Well, I don't understand that one because a community college student is a post-secondary attending a post-secondary institution. So I can see they including into secondary school sports. I find that funny. This is like you telling me that adults and minors are the same. If they want to create sports for TAMCC athlete, they got to get sports from SGU and NULO, or else create another track and field event for a next category as athlete. I mean, this thing is all going to belong to, because SAS winning. They're always changing things in Grenada. And the way we do things is not international standard. So a community college is not a secondary school. This is post-secondary school education. So create track and field for people who leave high school and hold events for them. That's what they do in big country. I live in North America. So I think it's just they're creating a GBSS versus SARS country town rivalry. But that's what I think it is.
All right, caller, thank you so much for your contribution this morning. Any response to the caller, MP?
Right. And the caller is absolutely right with regards to the concern that he has raised. And I believe this is one of the reasons this has not happened yet, because there are so many different views on it, very strong views. So there are many persons who share his view, and there are others, some people feel, make it an invitational, give them the opportunity to showcase. And there are others who feel, well, we don't have a second college, but maybe you can involve NULO and SGU and others and make it a separate game. There are different views, and I don't believe we've been able to bring those views together. And when I said we, I mean nationally, because this would obviously be a major national debate, whichever way that it goes. I have not expressed my personal opinion on this subject, and I'm not prepared to do so at this forum. I would love to hear national debate on this, and let us then come to some kind of conclusion. It would be very difficult to accommodate it in a way that persons would be. And I believe for many people, it is not necessarily having them compete. For some people, that is what. But to give an opportunity where they can showcase. Whichever way, it goes. I believe those involved in the forefront of sports can look at a way, and this is probably, I'm stating my position here now, finding a way that after secondary school, people can continue to harness and to develop their potential and to develop their abilities in this particular field. So right. The caller is not odd in that he's very concerned, and there are many persons who are concerned about some strong statements that it needs to be involved there. But the caller also mentioned something in reference to tongue and country, and when I reference Intercall in Progress Park, I was a bit surprised at how passionate some people would have expressed their opinion of this tongue and country thing. And I really want to encourage, just to stick that point in, I really want to encourage that we don't take this to a level where we have to in any way regret. I think we've gone past the tongue and country in a negative way. So if we want to refer to a geographic location as tongue and country, that might be okay. But when we look at some of the comments made and some of the statements made, I recall even the hosting of the games in St. Andrew, I remember, oh my God, some of the ways that we were referred to because we came from St. Andrew, it's unfortunate. And I just want to stick that pin there. Let us not go down that road. And I know that's not what the caller was referring to, but he reminded me of this.
All
and
right.
I just want to that pin in.
We do have another caller, MP. Let's entertain another caller. We can get as much callers as much. Caller, good morning, welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning to Emmalin, Pierre. I note in terms of you about leadership, and you have my full support because I think that you're capable, you're confident, and you can run this country and you can take over from Keith Mitchell. As a matter of fact, he has done a lot. He has contributed significantly to the development of Grenada, but I think that you could do a better job than him. So if you feel if there's a vacancy, as you say, then I have no problem because I always say that I think women, whether you or any other person, women should take the leadership because we women can do things. We women can become a prime minister. We women can be a commissioner of police, and we can do things. So you have my full support because I think I'm confident in you, and you'll do probably a better job than Keith Mitchell. So go for it. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. We do have another call online. Caller via WhatsApp. Good morning. You're welcome.
Yeah, good morning, JT. Good morning, Miss Pierre. Always nice to see you. JT, a while ago, you asked Miss Pierre a question concerning her position, like if she's going to give up herself to be running for leadership of the party. Ms. Pierre, first I want to ask you, do you read the constitution of the New National Party about the 12 months where you guys supposed to have an election every 12 months? And it was confirmed by Mr. Roland Bola. All right, so that means if you didn't have a convention for 2 years, that means every executive and the leadership is up for grabs. Now you're saying that every position is filled, which you know is a lie because you guys did not have convention in 2 years. Ms. Pierre, once again, I'm going to ask you to explain to the Grenadian people what does the 12 months mean that you guys supposed to have a convention to choose a leader? Right now, you don't have a leader. I heard you on 3 different shows say that if the position is open, and you know the position is open. So, Ms. Pierre, why you guys giving us the runaround and you guys cannot give us a convention when Oliver Joseph said within the first quarter a date will be announced? Ms. Pierre, be honest with the Grenadian people. Also, a quick thing. You said that everybody's saying about it 2 years. 2 years is a lot. Is a lot in truth, yet, but not so many things could accomplish. Look, the healthcare. You guys been there for 23 years, and the healthcare is still in a mess. Dr. Mitchell been there for 30 years, and nobody never challenged the leadership. And he said this year, the last election was the last. So now I want to know that the position is open. Are you going to announce yourself today to be a candidate running for the leadership of your party? Because you don't have a leadership. You know that right now you have a opposition leader, His Majesty opposition leader, and you don't have a leadership of your party. You know that, so stop lying to the people.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Any response to the caller?
Okay, so I was okay with all the comments of the caller until he said that I was lying. I was okay that this is his personal view. You know me, I respect everyone's view. That's his position. Now, let me explain the position of the New National Party. So he's entitled to a view, an opinion, a position, whatever he chooses to, and that's okay. The New National Party does have a constitution. And the Constitution does say the period in which a convention should be held. But the Constitution also states very clearly what should happen before a convention is held. right? And so for us at the New National Party, and I'm saying for us, because who decides a date for a convention is not Dr. Mitchell. Who decides the date for a convention is the executive of the New National Party. And fortunately, I would have had the opportunity to sit at all of the previously held executive meetings in which the executive took a position that there are some things that are prerequisites for the hosting of a convention that must be done. And as far as my knowledge takes me, I am aware that the party is in the process of doing these things that the Constitution, and I don't need to say those things because you seem quite aware of the content of the Constitution. So the party is in the process of doing these things. Now, the New National Party is not the first party that did not meet the timeline for the hosting of a convention. The National Democratic Congress has had several times, including very recent times, when it did not meet its timeline for hosting of a convention. So it's not a new thing. And it is also not the end of the world if you don't meet the timeline. What you need to do is that you continue to work on what is necessary to meet the timeline the next time around. And I believe as a party, I feel quite comfortable that where we are right now, we are doing the work that is necessary, that is required for hosting of a convention. And you are not, logically speaking, how do you have an organization with no position filled, and that organization continues to function, right? That's not possible. So to say that all of those positions are vacant, it is not a true statement. The party continues to function knowledgeable that we should have had a convention, but the executive took a decision why we were not having a convention, and the executive is working towards its next convention, as every other political party throughout the world would do when they have a situation like this.
All right.
And so it is the reason why no one can say at this time that there is a vacant position in the party, because we are all working towards convention. When the seats or the offices would be declared vacant, that's when it's done.
I think we do have another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Yes, good morning. I think the guest was very articulate, and I was very impressed with her, a lot of her statements and her perspectives this morning. However, one thing that I would like to challenge is that she said there is a misconception that participation in extracurricular activities in school take away from time allotted to academic performance. And I think this is actually a valid concern. It is not a misconception. This is students need guidance on how to balance themselves, how to budget their time, and they have to know their limits and how much activities they can take on without compromising academic performance. So without guidance and discipline, vigilant coaches and parents, academics can fall on the side for students who are not carefully monitored at school and home. So I beg to differ with the guest, with our host. I'm sorry, that it is really not a misconception. We have to monitor our athletes and any of the students who are doing extracurricular activity. If they are not guided properly, if they do not have proper discipline, academics can fall on the side, and we need to monitor them very closely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Pierre, do you respond to the caller? And we almost drew for wrapping the program up this morning.
I would just say to the caller, thank you for this. I absolutely, totally agree. When I made the point, I didn't go into expanding it, but I totally, absolutely agree with the caller. When I made the statement, it was in a general context, and it did not in any way mean that it is just total involvement in sports and, you automatically would do well. common sense would lead us to conclude and agree with the caller that there must be balance in everything you do in life. There ought to be balance. You want to make sure that there is a balance that can lead to success. So, caller, you don't have to feel that you're disagreeing with me. You're not disagreeing with me. I absolutely, totally agree with the point that you made, and I should have probably expanded the point I made so that you did not get that impression.
BB, I want to thank you for being on the show once again. Thank you. It's a pleasure having you here as always. Any closing comments before we take a wrap this morning?
I'll just close by saying this, and it's the third time I would have said it on the program. Sports does not know any color, right? Sports is an excellent opportunity for national development, and we didn't get into a lot of that aspect of it. It is also an excellent opportunity, as you would have pointed to, positively engaging our young people and getting them into achieving great things, right? There are avenues, there are possibilities. And so what we want to do is to maximize. So we want to ensure that all of our young people are accessing the opportunities that are available through sports, but also they are accessing not just opportunities as it relates to competitions and so on, but health is another area, right? We know that we have issues of obesity among our students, and sporting activities is also an excellent way of engaging them for that kind of positive outcome where they do not become obese, right? So there are so many opportunities for the young people. I encourage us, let us continue to encourage them, parents and all others, to go after the opportunities there and to make full use of the opportunities that sports provide. It's a vehicle that can be used to achieve success. I want to also call an appeal to the government to provide greater focus in the area of sports, greater support for association, to continue the work started under the new National Party administration. And I want to repeat, I do not subscribe to this philosophy that it's only 2 years and nothing could have been done in certain areas, and that 22 years and 30 years of, let's move past pampering this administration and let's challenge them to achieve what could be achieved. So I'm not asking this administration to do anything that is not possible within 2 years. I'm saying the things that could be done or could have been done, let us get it done. And there are many people who are prepared to support to get it done and to help in any way that they can. So let us move forward, developing our facilities, providing opportunities, and I believe at the end of this all, we'll all be able to look back and to say that Grenada has done well.
Thank you so much for being on the program this morning. Best wishes goes out to you for the rest of the day, and once again, all the best. Let me say thank you to all of our viewers and listeners who contributed to today's program. Have yourself a great day. That's how we say goodbye for this edition of To The Point. Goodbye, folks.